David, is Elon Musk a net positive or a net negative for humanity?
Massive negative. Massive negative.
David Icke has revealed how Elon Musk is planning to take over the U.S. government through a series of moves together with corporate America, and this could mean big trouble for us.
You see, he's putting up the satellites that are making the cloud possible. So when he says that AI could be the end of humanity, as he said a few years ago, and when he says, but it's inevitable, it's not inevitable at all. Those satellites are going up because they're being given permission by the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC in America. That's why they're going up. They could make a choice not to allow them to go up, and then AI wouldn't be inevitable. AI is the tool of global control, and that's why it's being done.
Now, I know that might sound a bit like a conspiracy theory, but when you start seeing the evidence broken down, it starts to make a lot more sense. David Icke does an incredible job of doing just that, which is why I wanted to share this video. There are people out there posing as your friends, but in reality, they want nothing more than to control every single aspect of your life. And no one exposes that better than Icke. Throughout human history, we've seen the same pattern repeat. Whether it's a different culture, religion, or time period, the many always give their power to the few. These few then impose their will on everyone else. It's been happening forever. The COVID era just made this process more obvious because things got more extreme, but the pattern hasn't changed. Think about it. Figures like Genghis Khan or Joseph Stalin couldn't have done what they did without people going along with it. The same goes for Hitler and the Nazis. It was the people's acquiescence, whether by buying into their lies or being too intimidated to resist, that allowed these regimes to thrive. Take China today as an example. The population is enormous, but if they all stood up together and said no to their government, the government would have no real power. Sure, the government could send in the military, but compared to the entire population, it wouldn't be enough. That's why these governments rely on a divide and rule strategy. They intimidate the population and keep them divided, because any real unity would threaten their control. That's where movements like Black Lives Matter, BLM, enter. On the surface, it sounds like a very positive message, standing up for Black communities who have been historically underrepresented. It's something people can easily support. But Icke suggests that this is all part of a psychological trick, a way to keep us divided. BLM, for instance, is funded by billionaires like George Soros. It's genius when you think about it. The message seems noble, but in reality, it's being used to further a larger agenda, divide and rule. The idea is pretty simple. Just keep the people fighting about race or religion or politics, and they won't know how they are being manipulated. And it isn't race alone. The Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerbergs and Elon Musks of this world all do it too. It's getting them more political because that is where their influence begins in the manner of voting. Think about it. Bill Gates is openly advocating for the Democrats, Elon Musk is now fully on board with the Republicans, and even Zuckerberg, who was once a Democrat, is now leaning Republican. What's interesting is that this level of political engagement from tech billionaires was once unheard of. Now they're using those platforms to form our perceptions and to guide our behavior, because of course they want control over as much of our lives as possible. And so they want us to vote for the government which is going to act in their best interests. And that's the reason why governments are being funded.
Musk is the leader. Are affecting the entire world. So how come a federal agency of the United States government can give permission to do that? And then why aren't the other countries kicking off about it? But they're not. Why? Because at that level of those countries, they're all on the same team, or controlled by the same team anyway. And so, as I said earlier, the idea is to connect the human brain to the cloud. And so Mr. It's danger to humanity AI, Musk, then starts a company, after he said that, called Neuralink, to put brain implants into people. And, it means taking a piece of your skull away and they put this thing in. That is a smokescreen.
For BLM, for example, it's much more murky where the truth lies. David Icke states that BLM has taken hundreds of millions of dollars from George Soros. But what is more shocking is that one of the leaders of BLM, a black woman appointed by Soros, used this money to purchase several mansions. The money was meant for the black community, but it was pocketed by a few individuals at the top. So what's really going on here? It's all about controlling perception. If you can control how people see the world, you can control their behavior. That's why these tech billionaires and political elites are so invested in dividing us. They can't physically control millions or even billions of people, so they manipulate the way we think. And if we're all too busy fighting each other, we won't notice the fact that they're who's pulling the strings on all of this. Psychological game. The motto Black Lives Matter is made to be impossible to argue with, considering that, of course, Black Lives Matter. But once you begin to see how people use that phrase to build division rather than unity, you see it's part of a larger scam. When saying all lives matter becomes a controversial or even racist statement, you know there's something deeper going on. It's not about what's best for black people. It's about using black people as pawns in a larger game of divide and conquer. That's the strategy. Keep us focused on things like race and politics, and we won't see the bigger picture. The elites, whether it's tech billionaires or political power players, want to keep us distracted so they can continue controlling our lives behind the scenes. And if that doesn't prove to you that these organizations are in it for the wrong reasons, honestly, I don't know what will. But what's even scarier is how these tech billionaires are trying to socially engineer our minds. They're using social media algorithms to feed us specific narratives, content and information that's purposefully designed to make us angry. They want us to focus on issues that are extreme, things that don't represent reality in any meaningful way. So what happens? We get online, we argue with each other, and the division gets worse. We start feeling isolated. Social media, which was supposed to be the tool to bring people together, has been completely hijacked. Now it's something that's driving us apart, fracturing society. That's why I'm so fired up about this. It's the reason I'm making today's video. Because as much as I hate to say it, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, none of these platforms are doing what they were built to do. They're failing at connecting us. In fact, they're doing the opposite. And now we have to talk about what Elon Musk is doing and why it's so dangerous for civilization. Because when I found out, I was shocked. I think it's going to shock you too.
When you say something that is different to the official story, then they say, that's a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy theorist. And you go, hold on a minute, where's your evidence, they say? Well, this is one of my books. Just one. There's others of the same size. They're absolutely packed. This is about one subject alone, the 9/11. And so they don't see what you're saying and check the detail of what you're saying. They just call it conspiracy theory. And the dictionary definition of a conspiracy is two or more people conspiring together or colluding together to do something that is unpleasant or illegal, basically. To get together to create an end that is illegal or not a nice thing to do. So on that basis, the world is drowning in conspiracies. And, you know, people say to me, you seem to see conspiracies everywhere. No, I don't. I see one conspiracy, but it has massive numbers of facets. And it's the different facets I talk about, but it's the same conspiracy.
Now everyone knows the whole plan of Elon Musk and Tesla for electric cars. This entire scenario has been justified. I can say falsely justified with the whole narrative that mankind is causing climate change. Carbon dioxide, a very basic gas for life, we all would have been dead otherwise, has been demonized. And now it is not just Tesla. Ford and all these other automakers are rolling out electric cars, and they're saying that by 2040, no non-electric cars will be manufactured. But it doesn't stop there. You've got governments pushing laws to phase out petrol and diesel cars, and what we're witnessing is a transition. The fuel infrastructure is shifting. Gas stations that provide petrol and diesel are gradually disappearing, and as we move forward, if you own a petrol car, you're going to find it harder and harder to fuel up. We saw a preview of this in the UK during the recent manufactured fuel crisis, where people were stuck in line for hours trying to get gas. And of course, the government that caused the issue then came out and said, well, this just shows we need to move away from fossil fuels and adopt electric cars. It's all coordinated. Electric cars? They're not just about saving the planet, they're about control. Electric cars, unlike petrol vehicles, can be remotely controlled by hackers, by the company that made them, or even by the government. Take Tesla, for example. Tesla cars already have self-driving capabilities, and they can lock or unlock their own doors, all controlled through a phone app. So what's stopping Tesla employees, Elon Musk, or even the government from accessing those features and using them against you? Imagine the government implements a zero-child policy, and you decide to have a child anyway. Suddenly, your Tesla locks the doors, drives you straight to the authorities, and you're arrested without anyone even touching you. That's the kind of future we're talking about here. While it seems far-fetched, if you think about the technology and what it is already doing, you can't dismiss the possibility.
If you want an autonomous vehicle, it can't be petrol or diesel. It's got to be electric, working with a computer. So you've got to get rid of petrol and diesel vehicles if you want the autonomous vehicles, which they do. So you get in a petrol and diesel vehicle now, and you basically, unless it's a military establishment or something, you drive it where you like. With an autonomous vehicle, the computer is going to decide where you can go or not, and that because it will be programmed not to take you where the authorities don't want you to go, and it's all about control. So here's three major planks. There are others, but there's three major pillars of this agenda: the cloud, the brain chip, and autonomous cars. And he is fronting up companies that are advancing all of them. And he said that he supports a carbon tax. That's straight off the cult agenda wish list. A carbon tax where to save the planet from the gas of life, you will only have to be able to buy certain number of things in a month before you cross your carbon limit, as they say, where they say, oh, that you bought that takes so much carbon to make and all that. So you won't be able to buy anything else. And there's already a credit card, I think it's MasterCard, where they're putting carbon limits on it. And then you have him calling for a carbon tax because of global warming, which he knows is nonsense.
It's not just electric cars. Look at what social media is doing to us. Controlling our thoughts with algorithms is what they are doing. They are using keywords and topics that they know we'll react to emotionally so they can control what we think and believe. It's a form of mind control from a distance. Politics, social media, and now technology are all being weaponized against us. It's about time that we recognize it and prepare for what's ahead. Now, I don't want to paint a completely bleak picture. Humanity has always found a way to adapt, to overcome challenges. We've always managed to come together and change governments when they've gotten too corrupt. I believe we're approaching a similar moment in time where we're going to have to take action. For months, the world's richest man, Elon Musk, has been calling for a new government department dedicated to slashing spending by the US government. On November 12th, President-elect Donald Trump answered that call by saying he would appoint Musk and entrepreneur and former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Vivek Ramaswamy, who will co-lead DOGE, wants to shrink the federal government workforce by 75%, which would result in 1.5 million people losing their jobs.
Will you kind of run us through the cliff notes about what the goals of this new agency is? You know, it's really kind of twofold. Government spending needs to be pared down, this agency, it's kind of quasi-governmental agency, argues, and also that the regulatory state needs to be somewhat dismantled. Both are difficult because both have constituencies. And, you know, as soon as you start talking about cutting government spending, the constituency behind that spending or in favor of that spending all of a sudden gets very vocal. So it's one thing to talk about spending cuts and talk about the bloated government. It's something else to really begin paring some of that back.
Absolutely. And I've heard some lawmakers who talk about, you know, okay, well, if you really look at the picks so far for this next administration, it's all about kind of overhaul or really turning things around, people who will be change instruments. Is this too far? Who's not on board?
Well, you know, again, you get back to those constituencies behind the spending, and that's where the cuts get tough. And plus, the fact that you've already had the incoming administration, President-elect Trump, saying that they're going to sequester things like Medicare and Social Security, protecting those from any cuts.
Musk has acknowledged that his cuts will cause short-term challenges, but insists they are necessary for long-term prosperity. However, critics like Ann Skeet, a leadership ethics expert at Santa Clara University, have raised concerns about his approach, pointing out that Musk has yet to conduct a thorough analysis and may be oversimplifying the government's complexity. Both Musk and Ramaswamy believe Trump can use an executive order called Schedule F to unilaterally cut government jobs. Signed during Trump's first term, Schedule F would have allowed the president to fire civil servants at will, but it never went into effect. Musk has a track record of making drastic staffing cuts, as seen during his Twitter takeover, where he laid off half of the employees, leading to significant operational issues. The platform is now worth 80% less than when he took over. So what really is his game? It remains to be seen.